Welcome to the Retirement Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Greg Gonzalez. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how you should invest in retirement. This is one of the most popular questions that I get from individuals and listeners of the podcast. Before we get started with today's topic, I wanted to remind listeners you can check out our website, which is retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. That's retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. It's kind of long, but there you can find our retirement secret sauce as well as the 2020 tax guide that we have for you. They can be both downloaded for free on our website, and you can also send me listener questions to greg@retirestl.com. I love hearing your questions. I can use them for future podcasts, or I can answer them privately. On today's show, we wanted to talk about how you should be investing in retirement. And I'll share my opinion on the matter and how I would look at investing someone's money for retirement. I get this question over and over because people always think that they're investing the wrong way. And they think there's a better way. And they have their brother-in-law in their ear saying, you should be doing this. When the fact of the matter is, your brother-in-law is probably wrong because his goals and how he invests his money might be for a different purpose than how you're investing your money based on what your goals are. Your brother-in-law might be going after the hottest next best thing, and that might not be right for you at all. So you have to be careful who you listen to. I once had a lady, this wasn't too long ago, but she asked me if it would be wise to invest all of her retirement savings in gold and in silver. And she heard from somebody through the grapevine that gold and silver was a good place to invest your money while you're retired. And I asked her, I said, well, what are your expectations of your retirement savings in retirement? When you're retired, you're not adding to them anymore. What do you expect from them? And she said, well, I would like a monthly income from my 401k, my Roth IRA, and I have an old 403b. I would like to be able to draw from them on a monthly basis, so I would need some interest. I would need the money to be growing and providing some kind of interest to help me support my lifestyle. Well, then I asked her the next question, well, how much interest, how much of a dividend do you think gold pays? And she said she had no clue. And that's a big problem. The first key of investing in retirement is you have to understand how your money's invested and how it will help you reach your goals. So I told this lady, I said, well, gold and silver, they don't pay dividends and they don't pay interest. So if you hold gold or silver, you are hoping that the price of gold and silver increases, and that's how you would be able to draw an income, is you would sell part of your investment every month and hope that the price of gold and silver goes up every month and you're selling your profits. And she said, well, that doesn't sound like a good plan for me at all. It might for someone else. And I said, well, I think you answered your own question. Gold and silver may be a good investment for someone else who maybe doesn't need a monthly income, but for you, it might be wise to look at a portfolio that produces dividends and interest, which will provide that monthly income that you're looking for in retirement. So the first question is, you have to ask yourself, what do you want out of your retirement savings in retirement? What do you expect them to do for you? And the answer is going to be different for everybody. It's kind of like when you're purchasing a new vehicle. Some people might be happy with a SUV. Other people are going to need a pickup truck. If you're a handyman, a lot of handymen like driving a pickup truck. If you tow a boat or a four-wheeler or other toys like that, well, then you might need a vehicle that has some towing capacity. Meanwhile, there's other people out there that are going to go shop for vehicles, and their goals are going to be different. They're going to want fuel efficiency, and they're going to want safety. Years ago, when people thought of a car company like Volvo, they immediately thought about safety. Other people are going to be looking for a sports car. Maybe it's a Corvette or a Mustang or a Camaro. That won't work for the grandparents that have 3 grandkids that they're taking to the zoo and they're taking on picnics, taking to the park, and all kinds of other stuff. If I ask those grandparents, why do you own the car that you own? They would say, hey, we've got 3 very active grandkids, so we own a Toyota Highlander. It's very spacious, has great safety features, and the grandkids absolutely love it. So that's always the first question that I ask people is, looking at your investment portfolio, why do you own what you own? You would be amazed at the responses that I hear. But what I'm hoping to hear from people is, I own it because it's helping me accomplish my retirement goals. It's doing everything that I expect it to do. There's a reason why you bought the specific car you did, and there's a reason why you're investing the way you are in retirement. So again, key number 1 to successfully investing in retirement is make sure that you understand your investments and make sure those investments line up with your personal retirement goals, not someone else's. Key number 2 to investing successfully in retirement is make sure your investments are flexible and liquid. It's been said that there's 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and change. We know life changes all the time, and our needs are probably going to evolve over time. So we need to be flexible. We need to have a retirement plan and investments that allow us to make prudent adjustments over time. Just like a pilot who's flying from New York to LA, you might run into some rough weather on your journey, and you might have to make some adjustments. However, if your investments are in something that is illiquid, you might be stuck and not able to make the adjustments that are needed. If your investments are liquid, it gives you the flexibility to make changes as life goes on. And sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest difference. So you want to be able to make changes as you go and be flexible. Let me give you a real-life example from a couple that I've been working with for many years. This beautiful couple found themselves 5 years into retirement, and all of a sudden, they needed to adopt their 14-year-old granddaughter. They knew this was going to have a huge impact on their retirement. They wanted to make sure that they would be financially sound through this change in their life. So we made some adjustments to their investment portfolio to provide more income that they would need to help raise their granddaughter. They just couldn't tell their granddaughter no. She was such a beautiful child, 14 years old. In 2 years, she would need help buying her first car. In 4 years, she would go off to college. And they knew these next 4 or 5 years would be crucial to her development into a fine young lady. The changes we made to their investment portfolio helped them provide for their granddaughter and her homecoming dress and her cheerleading expenses and even her first car. As their goals changed, so did their investment portfolio. We talked about it and put a number on it. In other words, how much more money were they going to need from their investment portfolio every month to help raise their granddaughter? We put a number on it. It was X amount of dollars a month. And then we talked about some possible options for changes to their investment portfolio. Together, we went over those options and decided on the best route to take to provide that extra income every month. The last key to investing successfully in retirement is staying diversified. Remember my example in the beginning of this podcast where I was describing this lady who asked about investing all of her money in gold or silver. And the key to that is she wanted to invest everything. And so often we see people that have an all or nothing mentality. This is a huge, huge mistake that people make. You must stay diversified. Remember Grandma's rule? Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you drop your basket, all of your eggs break. Your portfolio in retirement should be well diversified. By diversifying, what you're doing is you spread out the risk. Here in St. Louis, there's a GM factory. Years ago, when General Motors went bankrupt, they filed for bankruptcy. The stock price of GM went to zero. So if you own stock in General Motors, you lost everything. And there was a gentleman on the news that had hundreds of thousands of dollars. His entire life savings was invested in General Motors stock. He lost it all. He wanted General Motors to make him whole again, and it just wasn't happening. His pension and entire life savings were tied up in General Motors. If he would have just thought about grandma's rule, don't put all your eggs in one basket, he would have been a lot better off. We see a lot of people with company stock, a huge concentration in company stock, and they should really consider diversifying to spread out the risk. Here's a little experiment. Ask any woman, how many pairs of shoes do you own? You know what she's going to tell you? Probably 30, 40, 50 pairs of shoes. You want to know why she owns that many pairs? Because black doesn't go with everything. She might have a pair of rain boots for rainy, terrible weather. She might have winter boots. She might have summer clogs and summer sandals. She might have high heels, maybe a couple pairs for those formal events. Whatever the season, whatever the weather, she's going to be ready. She's prepared. Whatever the occasion, she's got walking shoes to walk the dog and play with the grandkids. And best of all, getting back to keys number 1 and 2, if you ask her, do you own a pair of black high heels? She'll be able to tell you whether she does or doesn't. And any pairs of shoes, if you ask her why she owns them, she'll be able to tell you. She would be able to tell you on what occasion she would wear those shoes and why. That's what your investment portfolio should look like and be designed like. You know why you own what you own and what the purpose of it is. And not only that, you're well diversified. Another example of diversification I absolutely love is imagine you're driving in traffic. There's 4 lanes of traffic. You got the slow lane on the far right, you got the fast lane on the far left, and then the 2 middle lanes. What always happens when you switch into the left lane, the fast lane? The fast lane slows down. What always happens when you switch back in to one of the center lanes? The center lane slow down. So by being diversified, it's like having a car in each lane of traffic. No matter which lane of traffic is moving the fastest, you're going to get there. You're diversified. You've got your options all spread out. It's just like when there's a fire in a big city. Whenever there's a fire, how many fire trucks do they send out? 3 or 4. Why do they send out 3 or 4 fire trucks? Because they know one of them's going to get stuck in traffic. One of them's going to get lost. But one of them will get there the fastest. If you're diversified, you send 3 fire trucks. One of them will get there and make it happen. The best investment portfolio in retirement is one that's diversified, is one that's flexible and liquid, and you can make changes very easily to it. And last but not least, it's a portfolio that you understand what you own, why you own it, and why it's aligned with your lifelong goals. One problem I see quite often when people retire is they do not change their investment portfolio once they retire. You have to ask yourself, have my goals changed now that I'm retired? I love the quote that says, what got you here won't get you there. For many people that retire, they use their retirement accounts as a source of income. They depend on those retirement accounts to fund their lifestyle for the next 30 years. But when they were still working, they were adding every paycheck, maybe to the 401k or 403b. So they were just looking for the account to grow so it was ready for them whenever they retired. You worked hard for your money. Think of all the sacrifice and hard work that got your retirement savings to where they are today. But the work is not done. In retirement, your money has to work as hard for you as you did for it. If you follow these 3 keys that we talked about today, you'll be well on your way to a successful retirement. That's it for today's episode. I want to remind listeners to check out our website, which is retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. That's retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. When you're on our website, be sure and download my retirement secret sauce, as well as the 2020 tax guide that we have for you. You can listen to other episodes, and you can also send questions to greg@retirestl.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, my friends, remember, always dream big. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, please consult your attorney, financial advisor, or tax advisor prior to investing. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA, SIPC.